do we have on
Very
board
good.
tonight?
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Legacy and Impact. It is Thursday, October 26th. And as always, it is a privilege and an honor to welcome you. We have people dialing in from across the country, and I know a number of other people are going to continue to dial in, but I wanted to welcome everybody. Good evening, Tom. Good evening out in Louisiana. Good evening, and congratulations on having our House Speaker from the great state of Louisiana. And Quincy in the house, Jeffrey in the house, Queen Sika's in the house, Andre's in the house, and I know that there's going to be a number of other people joining. I think there's a number of people I can't see, but welcome everybody. And as always, we want to open up the call addressing a little bit of current affairs, things that are going on in the media. Obviously, as we had discussed last week, there's, whenever there is war and tragedy going on, it is sad, it is tragic, it is scary, it is eventful. It's,
yes.
It's turning points that history is being unveiled and revealed. And, we stand at a very, very unique moment in time. Those of us who are believers, we know that the Bible has revealed a lot of what's going on. But at the end of the day, we keep all of those families and children and everybody in our prayers. Nobody should be suffering at any time. So, but good evening. So if anybody has anything that you would like to share or bring up before we dive into our content for tonight, the call is open. Welcome.
Hi guys, I was just going to say I'm glad to be on the call. I was driving and I stopped at every table, so I wanted to get something healthy to eat while I listened to the call. I seen Bitcoin going up, BTC, we're doing some minor projects, doing good, and I'm just happy to be here. And if you guys have any questions, any support about BTC, just let me know. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. Again, watching movements in the marketplace. Bitcoin is over 35,000 again, which is great. Again, we knew it was going to move, and we know it's going to continue to move. So we'll discuss a little bit more about that. But thank you for chiming in, Quincy. Anybody else? What's going on in your world? What's going on what do you want to share?
I missed that, Steve. My phone cut out on me for a short while there. When you went to record, something went on and I lost y'all. Had to come back in again.
No, I was just welcoming everybody and saying what's going on in the world. And again, if you have anything to share, now is the time. We were talking a little bit about your family's challenges, when you're dealing with legal estate or estates and the settlement. Oftentimes we see sides of our family and friends that we may not recognize. And so I know that you're getting very close to your resolution, Tom. I remember dealing with some of that stuff. It tends to be very expensive, and there are very few winners in the equation when you're dealing with estate settlement, right? So.
Well, I'd like to know if Tom can talk to us a little bit about XRP and what's going on with the solution with that. I know they won their case, but what's going on with it? Is it going to wind up being a tokenized for banking, or what is it going to go on with that, Thomas? Do you know?
XRP is going up right now. I think it's at 56 cents. The company Ripple Labs, which put out the XRP, they're fixing to go IPO. I don't know if you knew that or not, do you?
No, I do
not. XRP is set to tokenize a lot of stuff, far as even derivatives market, real estate market. It's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm a strong holder of XRP. I've got like 32,000 XRP, and my wife's probably got just quite a bit as much, almost as much, and wanted to buy more. If I'd have got a state settlement, I would have bought another $100,000 worth before it went up. But now it's on the way up. I don't know I'm gonna buy it while it's on the way up.
Thanks, Thomas.
Um, it, it's a used coin. You know, it's not just a crap coin, should I say? It has actual utility use, and that's what's going on. They have bank agreements worldwide. I forget how many banks and the Bank of International Settlements, and you know what they're doing. They can replace.
We're losing you a bit, Tom. So, yeah, so that's.
But XRP is looking to replace some of the stuff that Swift has been doing at a more economical place, and they already have contracts in place with banks worldwide and countries worldwide, which they're talking about doing different coins or hooked up with, you know, different federal governments around the world. You know, so they have contracts. Ripple Labs has contracts with multiple countries and all of the big banks. You know, and it's like a lot of stuff is in place. We're just, and it's going to be taken off. But just
right. And one of the things in regards to that, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Jeff. Yeah, with Ripple, one of the things that I think slowed Ripple down was the talk of the United States, the digital currency from that the Fed was talking about putting out, right? And the government introducing all these crypto type of projects. Now, if you're paying attention to what's going on, I believe Congress set forth that they did not want the Fed, and they had put a block on the Fed initiating the US dollar digital currency, right? Because they don't want the government in cryptocurrency, right? Now, obviously, depending upon who you're listening to, there is massive economic transition. I'm going to reference and recommend a video which is on Rumble. It's a long video. I was going to play some of it, but I want you all to watch it so that you can really process it and have it in your arsenal, so you can understand a little better of what's going on in the marketplace, right? Because what I believe is taking place, having watched this movie, is the government and Congress and all aspects of government are in the process of tanking the US dollar. Okay.
yeah,
I believe they're in the process of tanking the US dollar. And the reason why they're doing it is because they want to bring an end, they want to bankrupt the corporation of the United States, right? Everybody understands that the government exists, the republic exists, but there's actually a corporation that exists that monetizes every United States citizen, right? With every birth certificate that's issued, there is a value attached to the life of that citizen. And then the United States corporation is then able to leverage the revenue, the income that is expected to come from that individual over their lifespan. And depending upon the individual, they could be worth 600,000 and tradable on the stock exchange, or they could be worth 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, $100 million, one individual, depending upon what they accumulate over their life, right? And so there is a massive corruption scandal behind that, because we just think we're living our lives, but the truth is we are being leveraged and sold on the stock exchange, right? And so
Absolutely.
there is a trend going in that direction where it has become inevitable that the corporation is bankrupt and will continue to be bankrupt and will continue to collapse. And that's why the government spending the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt don't seem to be an important issue to anybody, because in the same way that when a company goes bankrupt, all of that debt ends up getting wiped out. Now, obviously, there is an aftermath to that, but that's what I believe is going on. And it's hard for us to imagine that that's the case because of how we've been raised, our knowledge base, and the information and or lies that we've been fed since the day we were born or we began being educated, and then the realities of the truth that all of this is happening. Right? Does that make sense?
I believe what you're talking about, because
Right.
what I'm seeing right now, the national debt is, we're already actually $1 trillion more than what we were 2 months ago. So we're creeping up at 34 trillion now. So, and what they're doing is the bond is where it counts at, because we are basically part of the bond, which is when we're given birth here in the United States.
Yep.
We are under a certain trust, which basically is what the bond is protected on. Everybody says the bond is great to invest in right now, but the way I see that, the way they're structuring this, and what I see what happened today in the stock market, is basically our dollar's going to shoot to the moon, and everybody wants it. So what we're going to do is, looks like to me, we're going to leverage our dollar, taking out each individual country at a time and their fiat currency. And then who's going to fall the last is the American fiat money, which is going to be at all-time high, and then overnight or within a week, it's going to drop. And everybody is going to be, we're just going to go out. And that's why Bitcoin is actually a good asset, but I still think Bitcoin will probably fall. Right now, I watched Bitcoin in the last 2 weeks. Their volume went up $130 billion in assets in Bitcoin in a week and a half.
Yep.
So you know where the stock is leaving from, and it's going to Bitcoin, so they can do transactions and they can do plays. People are talking about bonds and all this other stuff. We are the bonds. We are the leverage. And when they're telling you they're giving you free money, they're taking from your bonds and from everything else, which basically is bankrupting the American economy and American fiat. Like you said,
Correct.
they're definitely working at trying to bankrupt the Federal Reserve, which is not really American. It's a company within American soil. So the problem is how far is the limit before it breaks, and then all of a sudden within a week our currency is absolutely to zero. But they're going to implement something else.
Something else is going to come in on the side, and that's what they're working on. So there's the surface, but then there's something else, and and I don't trust that to be an item of value or element of value. I see it to have more of a sinister value, which then everybody will be beholden to it, because then they come in as the savior, right?
And that's why it's very important to be where we're at today, here, right now, figuring out our structure to support ourselves for what we need to do. That's why, I don't know why, but something keeps telling me, build your structure. Build your structure. Once you get the foundation done, you can move in and out the way you want to, what you need to do. And I have a feeling that that is what's going to save us in the future. Don't know how long it's going to take. People saying it can happen before 2024. I don't think so. I think people are still, what the word greedy is going on. They're still playing the market. It's amazing how people, once this Bitcoin went up, everybody's starting to email me. Everybody wants me to start doing this and that. But hey, last few months, when the stock market was moving, nobody even mentioned anything. But once the crypto starts moving, everybody starts emailing me and all this other stuff. Even banks. So I know it's a trick. I know it's a trick. I am the trick. And if I play with it, well, yeah, there's still money to be made. That's for the experts that know what they're doing.
Yep.
For me, I need to learn, and I'm actually learning
Mhm.
in this process. So for the future. So yeah,
Sure.
we're keep right on. We're right there. We just don't know. I keep asking for the vision, the hearing, and the wisdom to know the difference. But I guess God is going to reveal to me when the time is right. So I appreciate us getting together and collaborating with this, so we know what's going to go on. I mean, it's still
That's it.
it's an adventure, it's a game, and we're just trying to figure out. I just don't like how they're leveraging us as a human being on the bonds, on the Federal Reserve. And it's just, when you look at it, it's really a shame because we don't really know when we sign the birth certificate what we are. And now I do know what we are. We're
Right.
just
Well, that's the beautiful thing, and I'd heard this the other day. The good thing is more and more people are aware and they're waking up. And there are two things that have been happening within the economic structure, the global economic structure. And what they were saying is that the elites from all around the world are linking up and seeing eye to eye and partnering up more than ever before, right? Because again, when you're in a power position, you always want to be the boss. You don't want to be dealing with anybody else. You want to kind of stand independent and alone. But what they were saying is that the elites are now partnering up more than ever before. And so certain aspects of this agenda are moving forward faster than ever before. But on the flip side of that, more citizens, more civilians, more average Joes are now in tune with what they're doing, and we're not going along with it. So where the one is moving faster, the other is slowing down. And an example of that was the vaccinations and certain tactics that they've utilized, where in the past, statistically, people should have jumped on board, but we're not. So these are the things that are happening. And there's a couple clips that I've got I want to share with you. I'm not going to be really playing them. I'll play a little bit of them, but I want you guys to be collecting the information. And just as I've spoken to a few of you, my recommendation is go deep with me in getting set up with your life insurance that can be leveraged, as well as your trusts, so that way you have the corporate structure or the tax structure that has you completely outside of anything that they are going to pull, any of the shenanigans, right? Because the 87,000 IRS agents that they've brought on board, all of the conditioning that's taking place, they're going to start taking people down, and they are going to make people absolutely miserable, right? And it's not the rich that are going to be taken down. It's going to be the average Joe, right? And then but if you've got your trust in place, if you've got that, and it's a non-grantor trust, it's based on contractual law, not civil law, not common law, you're going to be outside of that, outside that system, and they won't be able to touch you. That's what you need. That's how you can build that protectionary element. So
can I bring in one thing that I noticed? I know it may be a little bit out of the ordinary, but I was watching last year, 2022. I was working, doing the stocks and all this other stuff, and I kept watching the DXY, and I started realizing how they leverage the dollar value, as in destruction of other countries. And I noticed when we were at $1.16 at the DXY, other countries were really, really hurting. So I realized now, as we're down, and we're still high at 106 and the DXY, which still puts us at the power struggle. So if you pay attention to the DXY, you'll see where the power of the dollar winds up taking control. Right now, it's not. I don't know why, but with this Israel thing going on. But during the Russia time, it went up to $1.16, which basically hurt the ruble and all the other countries. So I think the DXY is actually very important to watch to see where the structure of how the dollar works. If we watch it go high, we know we're trying to conquer some other countries and try to take over. So when that DXY gets really high, that's when we need to be concerned. That's what I've seen.
For everybody on the call, can you explain what the DXY is? Jeff?
Oh, I can explain. It's actually the leverage of the dollar versus other currencies. Bridges is actually one of the ones I like playing around with every now and then on my demo accounts. But it's the American dollar versus other currencies out there. And it makes the strength of the dollar, the strength of the currency, the value, the government, and the way it works. And so that's about much as I know about it, but that's what I've been watching.
So does DXY stand for like dollar exchange yield or dollar exchange dollar? That
one I don't know. I haven't really.
I'll look that up. Okay. Okay.
But that's that. I'm done. I'll listen to the rest of it.
No. That I appreciate that. I was not aware of it, but that's one of the things that I'm starting to pay attention to. And so I'm going to go do a screen share because there's a video that I found very, very informative today. And again, I'm just like you. I'm learning. Some things I know, some things I'm familiar with, but other things are new terminology, new references. We've got to learn these things so that we're familiar with them. So let me play a clip right now and give you the reference for it so that way you can look at it and watch it, because there are many, many, many indicators that are scary from an economic perspective. And again, we don't want to be economists, but we do want to understand what they're looking at and what they look at. So PowerPoint desktop. Sure. Very confusing for me. So Google okay. So this is the group is called Free Investing, FREENVESTING. And this is on YouTube. Free Investing. And so this is Kathy Wood. She's the head of one of the biggest ETF funds and a hedge fund manager, super successful, beyond smart. And so this is a clip. I'm going to play a little bit of it so you just get the context of it. But she starts referencing a whole bunch of indexes that are scary from an economic perspective that we have to pay attention to. We have to understand what this means. So here we go. Full screen and play.
Most people are not aware of it or haven't thought very carefully about it because it doesn't seem to matter to us. This is getting to be so serious that we are reaching a cathartic moment, and I do think it started. Let's just look at the numbers first. M2 growth peaked at 27% in 2020 and has been slowing ever since. We believe it is closing in or might be below 3% on a year-over-year basis, which doesn't leave a lot of room for growth or inflation unless velocity is really picking up, the rate at which money turns over. And we're in an environment where we do not believe velocity is picking up. If anything, I think individuals and businesses are becoming more concerned and are spending less freely. If you look at M2 also, you'll see that it actually peaked in March. Now, this is very unusual to see sequential declines in money. We have not gotten back above that March peak, and we may not get back above it the way that Fed policy is going. And I think I'd like to build the case a little more here that the Fed is probably making a mistake. I say probably because I have to from a compliance point of view, but I really do believe the Fed is making a mistake. And reflecting a little bit more on the Jackson Hole speech that Chairman Powell gave in late August, we've come to recognize that Chairman Powell really does think he is the reincarnation of Chairman Volcker, that we need him to take a sledgehammer to inflation, much like Volcker did. And history has treated Chairman Volcker very kindly. He did turn the tide on inflation. Now, what he did, though, was he turned a tide that had been building for 15 years. It started in 1964 with the Vietnam War and with the Great Society. So many social programs started at that time under President Johnson. And for 15 years, fiscal and monetary policy pretty much went rogue as we look at history. Even after shocks to the system, like the oil embargo and the stimulus that came about because of it, both monetary and fiscal policy, we never saw the kind of slowdown in monetary and fiscal policy that we're seeing right now. Federal spending is still down 14% on a year-over-year basis. You never saw a decline in fiscal policy spending in the 70s. Monetary policy seemed to be on automatic pilot back then. The dollar was getting crushed toward the end of the 70s, adding to the inflationary fire. So Chairman Volcker did choke off money supply and killed inflation. It took a long time for people to believe that inflation had peaked. In fact, I don't think many people believe it peaked as it did in 1981.
With photo vibrance, you can transform any photo into a mesmerizing moving image in just a few clicks.
All right, come on, let's bring in a member of the House Oversight Committee for the Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. And
Sorry. So one thing that I wanted to, I'm going to turn screen share off because that changed from the clip. The thing is this, is inflation, which is something we need to pay very close attention to. It's when the government keeps spending dollars, creating money from nothing, and that devalues every dollar that's in the marketplace, right? And so what they were talking about, and I don't know who Volcker was, but I'm going to learn a little bit more, is they basically stopped printing money. When you stop printing money, immediately inflation stops. Historically, and again, they've learned this from other countries where, I forget which country it was, I want to say like Colombia or something, where inflation was rampant, and then they bombed the place that made the money, that printed the money for the country. And when that took place, all of a sudden, all inflation in that country stopped because money stopped being printed, right? So the same thing has to take place here in the United States. Now, the unfortunate reality is when you do drastic things like that, there is immediate and painful impact on people, namely the poor, right? And so these are the things, again, I encourage you to watch that clip under free investing, Kathy Wood, and that was just put out. That was just put out the other day. I forget which. Okay, so
Can I share with that one with you guys?
Go ahead, please do.
Volcker, I actually do remember. It's kind of hard to explain, but let me just pull it off the shelf and I'll show you where I came from, because I know this one quite well. Let me just. If I can get it close enough, but looks like it won't focus.
Yeah, you're out of focus there.
Yeah, it probably will be, but yeah, it won't focus on glass, I guess. Well, there it is.
Oh, it's the setting that you have, because you have your profile setting where your background is out of focus. That's why.
That's fine. But I don't know if you can see this.
Yep. Yeah, we got it.
These are plaques from my dad. Okay.
Uh,
My dad was the IRS man until 1998 when he retired from the IRS.
wow.
And he was state and gift tax. He's also a person who got a plaque from the IRS because he found a loophole in the state and gift tax. So he saved the IRS billions of dollars, and they gave him a plaque. He's in the paperwork and all this other stuff. He's shaking hands with the district manager or the district IRS guy in 1986.
Wow.
I do know this one. This was a very tough time with our family, which was when Dad told me to leave at the age of 19 and 79 because it was really tough. And I remember 1984 quite well when it was really hard to find a job, a good paying job. Like you said, all the ones that hurt were the low income people. Me, I had to work construction jobs. I had to work on the freight docks back then just to make a living because it was hard to find a job. And 84, because the interest rate went up to 16.4 at its peak before Volcker dropped it down on a policy that he did because they ran it all the way up and then they dropped it down. And that's when everything just flipped overnight. 84, 85, 86 was just going crazy because the new invention, if everybody remembers what it was, I don't think they do, computers, personal computers.
Right.
That's what the revolution does and made the change where America just took off again. Barring was being barred to buy your little portable Macintosh square computer, which I know my stepmother had one, and she would carry it to work every day. And that changed all the revolution. That's what I'm starting to see. And I'm wondering to myself, that's why they're trying to push these robots and all this new technology so they can push something so they can create more wealth. Because right now we're what they call stagflation. We don't really have anything new. Yep. I mean, to me personally, Elon is going traveling out in inner space, which is what we should have done because we were dreaming that in the 60s and we stopped it for some reason. Mm-hmm. But needless to say, I do remember that era quite well. I remember how tough it was. And this is where I run my credit over $69. I'm sorry, $96, fighting over a Firestone for a set of tires. And they said you had, 10 months to pay for it. So I paid 10 months and they said I still owed more. And I argued with them and they looked at me and says, we're gonna put this on your credit report. I said, go ahead, I paid 10 months. That's what you said for. But they still found a way of charging me more. And I ruined my credit for $96. I learned a lesson. Right. But that era and what Volcker did was actually amazing, but it also with new inventions, which changed everything. It wasn't just Volcker. It was new inventions coming out, making profitability in the United States. But that's all I can share about that one. That one I remember quite well.
Wow, that's very insightful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing because I was not aware, and so I'm a little bit younger than you, and so but also with you having the access to information from your father. Wow, that's priceless. So very good. Yeah, but the point is we all need to be constantly learning. Now is not the time to be resting. Now is the time to be gaining extraordinary knowledge. All right. So I had mentioned another clip that I encourage you all to watch, and it's on Rumble. So please write this one down. Do screen share on Rumble, RUMBLE. And rumble.com. And you want to look up the greatest show on earth. Okay, the greatest show on earth. This documentary is scary, enlightening, and may bring a smile to you because you kind of start to understand it, but there were events and things that took place I had no idea. And I believe that this is making sense of a lot of the stuff that didn't make sense, right? We've all been in that situation where we're looking at something and we're scratching our head and going, I don't know, something's not right here. And of course, the media is telling us what's going on. But when you literally see it with an explanation, you go, ah, that now makes sense. The greatest show on earth. Okay. I highly recommend that you watch that. Okay. So, and again, we've talked a little bit about trusts last week. If you tuned in, again, all of the calls now are available through the YouTube link. I will send that out to us all so that way you guys can listen to this call. If you have any references, you want to see last week's call, I'm stacking them all up and making them available because the content that is now available on this on Legacy and Impact is going to make a huge difference for you, assuming you take action, right? And we've talked about trusts. Last week, we talked extensively about them. And the objective is to get yourself to a place where you don't have to worry about taxes because you've structured it so that income coming in, income being generated can be directed into an entity or aspect that allows you to be tax deferred. So you don't need to worry about it, right? We've talked about the use of self-directed Roth IRAs and structuring investment LLCs. Many of you have followed on that lead and got that set up, which is fantastic. That's tax-free investing moving forward in perpetuity, right? But again, we have other income that comes into our lives, and how do we get that so that's tax-free? By structuring a trust, you then have the ability to have that all of that income, that passive income that's so exciting, be tax deferred. Okay. And so as part of the tax deferral mechanism, we recommend that you get a life insurance policy, or you start looking at your beneficiaries, your children, if you don't have kids, then you look to your nephews and nieces, the people that are close to you or close friends, people that are of value and important to you. We want to get to a place where they can be safe and secure. Okay. Now I've shown you guys this before. These are illustrations with reference to life insurance. Okay. This is a whole life insurance that has cash value, generates dividends, and has a death benefit attached to it, right? And so I don't know if you guys, I'm hoping that you guys can see. I'm going to blow this up a little bit here, and hopefully. So the individual that I prepared this for is 38 years old, and the policy is roughly $12,000 per year. Now, the way we structure this, it's very unique. But by putting a policy in place for $12,000 per year, they have access to borrow up to 90% of $105,000, right? And that money, that $105,000, now you can be investing in real estate or whatever. You can use this as an investment tool. The cash value of this is $8,800. And then the dividend, there's no dividend generated for the first 8 years. But after 8 years, it starts yielding a dividend that over 10, 20 years turns into a 6-figure dividend. Okay. What's unique about these types of policies, again, the key is establishing the first year, getting the first year up and running. Because sometimes people say, oh, $12,000 a year, how can I pay for that? Right? So how can you not pay for it? So, so worst case scenario, you need to pay for your second year. You can borrow from your death benefit to pay for your second year, right? And you can keep leapfrogging. This is wealth strategies. This isn't taking money and wasting it. And so your 12th year or your second year, your cash value, because this is money in the bank. Your cash value of your cumulative cash value is $19,000. In your third year, your cumulative cash value is $30,000. And that's money that you can take out at any time. You can cancel this policy, take that money out. So all you're doing is you're taking money, and rather than putting it into the bank, you're giving it to the life insurance company so that they can invest it. Does that make sense? Okay. And I'm going to show you some examples because we all have access to money that we waste. Would you all agree?
I agree.
Okay.
Can you tell me how much are we allowed to take out of the $12,000 first year policy?
You can take out up to 90% of 105,000 in this scenario. Again, this is a 38-year-old. For me at 61, it's around $70,000. So I could take out up to 90% of $70,000. But the magic is these policies are paid for by our trust, right? And so the trust is the beneficiary, but then you also can initiate policies on your beneficiaries, right? I've got a 28-year-old son, 27-year-old daughter, 24-year-old. So I'm in the process of putting policies in place for them so that way the trust can accumulatively have access to approximately $500,000 and more. And it keeps, go ahead.
So let me ask you a question. So, which I don't understand. If we put in 12,000, we could take out 70,000?
Correct. Yes.
So that's what the policy, so what is the policy written under? How much would be the policy for a $12,000 policy that I paid for the first?
Its death benefit is roughly $70,000, $70,000 to $80,000. But
Okay.
the real value is in the cash value, the PUA that's put in extra, because your policy is basically here, but we're throwing in a whole bunch of money in to turbocharge the policy to get it generating a lot more money, right? Because the policy is basic. With a basic policy, you might have access to $30,000 or $30,000. But because you're throwing in extra money, that gives you access to extra money. And so these are wealth strategies, and you want to keep compounding it. And again, when you look at the various different examples of this, you'll see how it increases. Again, because you don't, with putting in $8,000 a year consistently, if you look, your cash value in your fifth year is $12,000. You put in 12,000, you have total $12,000 access. The next year you put in 12,000, now you have access to 13,003. The next year you put in another 12,000, now your 12,000 is automatically worth 14,000. So your money that just by putting it in is increasing in value. And the accumulative over time is here. And your dividends start kicking in. But while you're doing this, your death benefit is increasing from 105 the first year to 126 to 147. Within a short period of time, you're over 200,000, right?
So it looks like to me, it looks like it takes what, 6 years to get over the value of how much you invested into it to bring out the cash value.
Correct, the cash value. Okay, so that's in this example with this amount of money. If you put more money in, everything speeds up. So you just got to figure, how fast do I want it? So this is about taking money that we have going over here, and we put it into our policy before we pay our mortgage, before we pay our insurance. So you start cycling money through automatically in order to have it increase faster. Okay.
Okay.
So
is this the 90-10 policy?
Correct.
Okay. 90-10, which is the best policy.
Correct. So this is an example of 12,000. Now, if you had 50,000 in your first year, you have money sitting in a safe deposit box, in my retirement account, in my self-directed Roth IRA investment account. I can pull 50,000 out, drop it in here, and now it accelerates. Rather than with a 50,000, rather than having access to 105,000, now I have access to almost 200,000, right? Because the key,
wait a minute. Go ahead. Whoever wants to.
because the key to making money is getting access to money.
Okay,
If you
so
have-
did you just say that we can actually take money out of our self-directed Roth IRA in this?
Yes, I did. But
Okay, so
but it has to be
Go ahead.
structured correctly. Okay.
Okay,
Has
yeah,
to be
because wouldn't that be UBT? Would it be called if you touch that and mess around with that? Be a
No.
UBT?
No,
No.
because your the investment company, which is owned by your self-directed Roth IRA, is simply loaning $50,000 to somebody in exchange for 10% interest.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
So if I borrow the money that I put in the self-directed Roth IRA, like if I wanted to put 20 grand in there right off the bat, and I wanted to borrow it, where would it stay in my IRA for
No.
other investments,
It
or how
would
does that work?
you again, I don't want to get into the specifics, but again, your Roth, the investment company that's owned by your Roth IRA is here, and it owns an investment LLC. That LLC can invest in real estate, it can invest in franchises, it can lend hard money, it can loan, it can do whatever it wants to do. So if there's somebody that wants to borrow $50,000 from it, and they're willing to get paid 20%, sure, I'll loan you 50,000 and I'll get 20% back. That's a good return on investment.
Absolutely.
And again, the power lives in the paper trail. Okay? Because it's not you borrowing it from the investment company. It's the investment company lending it. Got it? You got to remove yourself from the equation. The purpose of the investment LLC is to invest the money, to generate money. Okay. They can loan it to a hard money lender. They can loan it to you. They can loan it to whoever, as long as they're generating an ROI and it's within the context and there's a paper trail. Boom. Right. So that's an example where you drop 50 in. Now, all of a sudden you have access to 200,000. With 200,000, you with the new rules, and you can buy a fourplex in Texas or in Oklahoma or Alabama or anywhere but LA. Make sense? Because it's access to money that creates more money. Again, and so depending upon how much money you have, because you don't have to put that much into this policy every year. The only thing you have to put in is $4,000 per year, or $4,120 per year. Okay. So that's an example. Okay. So let's play a bigger game. These clients of mine, they have access to some pretty significant money. Okay. So let's say they dropped 500,000. They put $500,000 in a policy like this in the first year. And now they put in $500,000, and look at how much money they have access to immediately. 90% of 100. So they put in $500,000, they have access to $1 million now. And look at their cash value. And now within 6 years, they're at and again, this is only $500,000 in the first year. After that, it goes down to $12,000 per year. And so within 5 years, 6 years, they're at $100,000 dividend. Sorry, $100,000 dividend within 5 years. And you can live on that $100,000. These are powerful tools. And if you do this within the structure of a trust, tax-free. Okay. That's what I'm encouraging everybody to do. Again, don't be distracted by all these different things. These are the tools that we have. And we're like, I'm in the process of doing this with big money people that literally paid one client paid $500,000 in taxes last year. He says, I got to get out from that. So this year he'll probably pay like 25,000 as opposed to $500,000. Okay. It doesn't make all of your taxes go away, but the majority of it can be deferred in perpetuity because of the structure of the trust. That make sense? Right.
So Steve, it sounds so good. So you're able to walk people through this, but if I want to do this, I see you, correct?
Yeah. I'll take care of you. I'm
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Just making sure.
I'm doing it every day right now. I have so many people that are calling because
Okay.
because
I don't want to go to anybody else.
now is the time. Well, and
I trust you.
and the reality is not everybody has access to the trusts, right?
Mhm.
And that was one of the things, Jeff, we were talking about is you can put this trust with this trust with this trust, and you kind of package them all together, and it's like it's convoluted. This is just one-stop shop where it's already structured, already seasoned, has a track record over 400 years old, right?
So you're our mentor in this. So are you our ongoing mentor to keep us structuring this on a regular basis? Or
No,
do
we actually
just one
have
time?
we have senior trust analysts that help, and a whole accounting team that their sole purpose is taking care of trust. I'm learning a lot right now. I'm learning a crazy amount. And but I'm certainly your point person as I'm committed to helping as many people as possible, right? And I know the ultimate value. And like we talked about in the beginning, if you recall, a year ago or when we started with Legacy, my objective with this program with Legacy is to help everybody build a financial fortress, which is the equivalent of a castle, a medieval castle. So all of your wealth goes inside your castle and it's protected. That's what these trusts are like, where everything can go in there. And again, trusts can't be sued. Trusts, there's no risk and so you have massive asset protection primarily, and then on top of that you have tax deferral, right, in perpetuity. So
Where you're showing us one at 90-10, do you have any policies that are showing 60-40?
No, I haven't been doing those, but again, that, like I mentioned to you before, Jeff, that's really about coming up with, depends on what the entities are, right? Because all of this is geared towards passive income. Okay, it's that term that I had referenced. It's extraordinary dividends. Okay, extraordinary dividend is a unique type of dividend that the tax values are then deferred in perpetuity, but it has to be passive income. It can't be active. And that's where not all companies can structure so that they have 90% passive income. In some cases, they can only get to 70%, so, and that's where it depends on the nature of the business or the nature of the sourcing of the revenue. Okay. So, and again, usually a deal can be structured where there's equipment or resources, software, something can be structured where it's owned by the trust and then leased back to the company by the trust, so that then the money that's paid to the trust is ultimately a lease agreement, totally passive. Right.
Okay.
So that's the type.
Is it still based upon, I know we're using it as a tool for investment, but does this still work the same structure as the Nielsen Nash structure?
Yeah, totally. This is what we're doing. This is Vortex banking, which takes Nash next level.
Okay. Yeah, because I just found a video of Nash passed away. Nelson Nash passed away.
Yep.
And he passed all of his knowledge to his son-in-law, which is David Steams, Steams. and David is actually taking it over right now. And I have a video on that which explains exactly how this works. If you would like me to send it over to you,
Sure.
it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah. And
Because
but
it
like I
explains
mentioned,
it thoroughly.
if you go to legacy.live or liveiws.com, you can log in there. You can go there and then request the free book. And this is Nash 2.0.
Yeah, that's what 94 pages you got to read.
It's insignificant, but again, it's an easy read. So if you download that, and then you can start collecting, and you'll start to see where this went so far, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden, if you start applying these other traits with this structure, you can get yourself to a great place. So,
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but these are life insurance tools. Again, life insurance will always be a great investment for you. It's what all the wealth, the system we're using, Grant Cardone is using this. Grant Cardone is using, and so again, they don't promote it that much. It's best kept secrets are oftentimes not exposed because they're absolutely invaluable. And if you're giving away your secrets to other people who are in theory your competition in the real estate marketplace, and if you've got something that allows you to not have to worry about capital gains or tax deferrals, you're going to go into a deal differently because you're not concerned about the things that other people are concerned about. Make sense? So that's why this sort of stuff, I'm very comfortable sharing it, but the majority of people, they don't want to share this. They want to keep it. No, they keep it within their own family, right? And again, the ultimate value in this and us learning this is not for us, but more importantly for our children and our children's children, right? This is about generational wealth. This is the fortresses of medieval times that are now available for us to protect our families. All right. So, but yeah, Queen Sika, I've been meaning to reach out to you, and I apologize, but everybody on the call could benefit from this structure. If nothing else, you start with a life insurance policy, get it working so you learn how to work it. And the thing is, with reference to the trust, what I've been experiencing and what through sharing knowledge with people, you can't learn everything all at one time. And so you have to look at this trust structure as like a brand new Ferrari, right? Brand new Ferrari, red, sitting in your driveway. All your neighbors are looking at it saying, oh my God, Jeff, how did you afford this? This is such a beautiful car, blah, blah, blah. Like it's all yours, right? Now, the fact that you don't know how to drive stick, does that devalue the Ferrari that's sitting in your driveway? No. The value is what the value is. You just have to learn how to drive stick. You just got to learn how to drive this. And then how you drive the Ferrari in your third year is very different than how you drove it in the first year. Would you agree? And obviously, by the time you get to your 10th year of driving the Ferrari, you know how it works. You know what it's capable of doing. You're excited every time you get in there and you turn it on and rev it up. Make sense? That's the way you got. That's the way you got to look at this trust. So
the only thing I got to ask is, can you say that type of trust twice in a row so we can understand it?
Yes, it is a non-grantor, complex, discretionary, irrevocable spendthrift trust, or non-grantor, irrevocable, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust. 5 elements.
Now, is that different structures, or is that one trust all by itself?
One trust all by itself. Each one of those elements means something from a legalese perspective.
And what type of law is that written in?
Not common law. It's contractual law. Constitutional contractual law. There's contract law, and then common law. Common law is
Well,
often referred to as civil law nowadays, but it's constitutional common law and constitutional contract law.
And if
Steve, this whole thing will be on video tonight. What we're talking about in the screens and all. I can go back and relook at all this. Correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But
Because this is some of the things that I was just talking about with this young attorney tonight. And I've been telling them about you that, hey, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet Steve. And of course, I'm wanting you to meet him too.
right. Yeah. Well, and again, ultimately, if you want, I mean, I'll put together the illustrations. This is called an illustration. I'll put it together for your specific scenario, right? And when we put together the illustrations, we should give brackets. Usually I recommend at $12,000, but then they increase to 50,000 if you put in 50,000 per year, or 100,000 per year, or 150,000 per year, or up to 200,000 per year. But when you look at, again, once you have access to that type of money, which I'm convinced that all of you are going to have that type of money, you could drop $200,000 a year into one of these policies, no questions asked. And look at the type of growth that happens. Within 10 years, you're at $6 million, right? Or more. So there's a lot in this. All right. So, but we just gotta start putting it in place and teach you how to drive the Ferrari. All righty. I'm going to turn the screen share off.
And it's never too late to start, no matter what.
There's not, again, it's like I wish I knew all of this stuff when I was 40, but I was busy learning the other mechanics to break free from all the stuff that I had been taught, And,
Yeah, it's never too late. Yeah, as long as we're still here.
Yeah, and I like when I speak to people, they talk about getting ready to retire, and they've got these things, and they want to be able to protect them, and we want to sell this building and sell our business, and you start looking at it from a tax perspective, psychologically letting go excuse me, of something you've built is not an easy thing to do, right? And then you start, okay, once you're ready to, I'm going to sell my business, and with it, I sell this building and all of this stuff. This is stuff where you've, or an asset or something you've built over time. You decide, okay, now I'm going to, and then you start looking at the tax ramifications, and you go, all that, and I end up having to pay that much in taxes. Screw that, right? So, but so many people are starting to come to that place, and it's better that you learn it now. But like the other people that a lot of them, I'm dealing with people that are in their 30s, where if you start this in your 30s or early 40s, over the next 10 years, 20 years, you'll be blown away. It's the type of money that people dream of, and you can walk away from everything that you're doing, right?
And just live off of that, just basically on what you're pulling out and putting back in, or recycling.
That's it. You're just cycling through. Money that comes into your possession serves two purposes now. It goes into the policy, which increases the policy, and it pays your mortgage. Money comes in, it pays the insurance, and it builds the policy, and it pays the insurance. So that's the mechanism that allows it to keep compounding. And again, all you're doing is you're simply giving money to the life insurance companies so they can be investing it. That's all they're doing. And they've been doing it. They've been doing it over 100 years. There's no risk on their end. They're not concerned because they run the numbers. That, again, when policies are being underwritten, it's not willy-nilly. There's calculations, and there's science behind it. The algorithms and what's the term? The actuaries. You know, they're running numbers and they go, okay, you're this year and this is how much money you should accumulate. And over time, that money turns into this. And if you give it to us, then we'll turn it into this. And you know, none of it is left to chance, right?
Okay.
But what they do know, and what we know, is that everybody's born and at some point, everybody will die.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want to maximize that money while they have access to it, because at
Mhm.
some point they get to pay out and they have to use
Right.
that money to do that, to cover that. But that's what they do, right?
Well, one thing I do want to
Right.
know, okay?
Yes, sir.
I heard you can write several different policies with yours. Is that true?
Yes, of course, of course. It depends
Okay,
on
so
depends on, you know, if the conceptually, like I'd shared with you, the trust is the one that's paying for the life insurance, okay, the policy. So they get a policy for the trustee, and there are 3 or 4 or 5 beneficiaries. So you buy policies for each of the beneficiaries, and now that money cycles. And again, the collective, you have access to roughly $500,000.
okay, so if I wanted to write a policy for my mom, my sister, my brother, and my half sister, can we do policies for all of them under the same structure?
Yes, but I will caution you, the same way that the real value in my scenario at 61 is not in my policy, because I put in 12,000, I have access to 70,000. The real value is in me putting the policy, putting in $12,000 for my 28-year-old son and him getting access, or that the trust getting access to 140,000, right? So you would be better off getting policies, or have your nephews or nieces to be beneficiaries, long-term beneficiaries, and then you would then get a policy on them. Make sense? And then
Okay.
you, because the dollar for dollar value would be greater, because you're not really utilizing the life insurance as life insurance for the person. You're using it as a financing mechanism for the entity. Right?
Yeah, I'll have to learn about that one a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, it's like
a little bit more.
It's just, if I got 12 grand and I buy a policy for my sister who's 57, I can get access to 70,000. But if I buy a policy for her son, I can get 140,000.
Ah, good to know.
So it's just the dollar for dollar. So younger people, their policies are going to have a lot more money with it that's available to them because they're younger. They're less likely to die. Make sense?
Got it.
And so that's how you start looking at the beneficiaries of your trust, right? For me, it's relatively simple because I got the kids, right? But if you don't have kids, okay, how do I structure this? And this, again, gets a little creative, but it comes down to the question, who's important to you, right? And who do you feel financially responsible for? Who would you like to take care of moving forward?
So when you're opening this policy, you have to go someone else to do an examination on you, correct?
The individual, whoever's there's medical exams. Yeah. It's
Okay.
there's
Right.
nothing covert. This is all above board, right?
Is that paid for, or do you have to pay for that?
It's all in the process.
Oh, it's all okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
If you've ever gotten life insurance, like sometimes they'll charge you $30, for blood testing or something like that. But usually it's covered within the policy, right? And most, as long as you don't have a history, if you have a medical history, then they may scrutinize a little bit more. But as long as you're in relatively good health, don't smoke, don't drink, blah, 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 right? No diabetes, no heart conditions, the usual stuff.
So what happens if you are classified as diabetes? Does it help you?
It just means that it takes a little bit more time, and it doesn't mean that they won't issue the policy. some of the ratios may change a little bit. It's still insurance, right? It's still it's the insurance industry, and it's a very lucrative but cautionary industry, right? So.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, because in 2019 I was just like borderline diabetic, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, since COVID, I'm full fledged diabetic and all this other stuff. And then the policies changed. Now I got to pay more for all this other stuff, and I'm like, okay. So then I tried to apply for the lower income, which I do, and then they all got upset because I qualified for low income. So I'm trying to figure out what game they're playing here with me. Am I really a diabetic? I'd really rather just go and take my own test and try to figure out what the hospital's trying to accomplish here.
That's what
Because
I would do.
I'm asking what's going on here, because I keep telling them, hey man, I got a problem with the throat, but they don't care about the throat. They'd rather just keep pumping, the diabetes pills and make my throat swell and cause an infection there. But they don't care to worry about the thyroid, which regulates all your sugar and all the other stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I'm trying to see if they're setting me up here.
Correct.
I know it sounds kind of weird, but I don't understand what they're doing. And that's why I want to know what the policies, how this works.
Yeah, go independent, with your own testing. Make sure, if they're saying one thing, go somewhere else outside of it and see if you get the exact same results, right? Because we can no longer trust any system, right? They are milking the system, and if they see you as somebody that they can fleece the system with, I guarantee they will be doing that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They definitely tried to push the pills on you, my brother.
Yep.
They were saying he had high blood pressure. It was only high because he had got upset or something. You know how it goes. And then they pushed the pills on him, right? And he stopped taking them over 7 years ago, and they still give them to him. He said he just throw the other old bottle away, set the new one up. But they always say your blood pressure is phenomenal. It's good. He ain't taking the pills. That's why. And the same thing. Yeah, the same thing with my significant other. There's an issue that occurred with him, and the doctor is giving him 4 pills, and he started taking 2, as if the doctor was going to tell him to do that. The doctor said, "Oh, your levels of XYZ are doing fine." He said, "Now we can lower them to 3." He's been taking 2 forever, so he's going to wean himself off. See, hey, I believe in the real doctor. That's our Heavenly Father.
Amen.
That's it.
Amen.
Jehovah Rapha.
Because see, what just happened within the last week or so is, I have a mouth, so I can actually work them to get them down, because I know the CPT codes and how they overcharge, all this other stuff. So I'm talking to my doctor, and she's just listening to me and just prescribing medicine left and right. And when she's ignoring about my throat swelling, so I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. This charging for this new Ozempic or this new Jardian, which I'm taking, which is $2 a pill, and I'm supposed to be taking it every day. And I started realizing, this is getting to be expensive. So I did research and got it down to a lower price, and immediately waited to buy my pills until I had to wait 30 days to get this prescription to make it lower, which I did. I approved for it, which is what I qualified. And then immediately, in less than 5 days, the doctor automatically emailed me back regarding their lower interest rates or the lower charges on your billing cycle. So it's like they wanted me to go and do another blood test just because I got a lower rate on my pills. So that told me a red flag right there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now I know what everybody's talking about. So I'm still taking them. I mean, I got them right here, but
be smart. Be smart.
I am.
In all aspects, just be smart. So very good.
I am. I'm watching them.
Yeah. All right.
I've been having to go through some of this stuff with a doctor and all. One of the things what I've been finding out is intermittent fasting will help out in your particular case. They got some homeopathic doctors that I've tuned into, some that kind of indicate this. They had me on all kind of diabetic medicine and stuff because I was borderline. And I got looking at some of that diabetic medicine is more damaging to you than it is helpful.
Yep. I
think one of the homeopathic doctors is Holly Lucille. You get an online. I'll have to go back and find some, but it's like Steve said, you got to look at what these doctors are doing. You know, I had one of them that's wanting to do a procedure. He gets probably $2,000 or $3,000 every time he did a procedure. You know, he said your testosterone's low. Yeah, well, if they give you the testosterone, it causes you to produce less testosterone.
Right.
And I got away from that and did some natural things. He said, man, next time I went in for a blood test, I said, well, your testosterone's up. Well, what are you doing? What's going on? Well, I'm taking this natural thing over here, you know?
Eating fruit. Yeah. Good
But
stuff.
I didn't want to sidetrack us there, but that's cool. But hey, I wanted to find out what type of in this policies. You know, I wanted to ask because I talked to you earlier, and I wanted to bring it to other people. You know, this policy, it's a mutual, or is it a stock company policy?
Mutual insurance companies generate dividends because they are owned by the policy holders. And so as the company is profitable, dividends are paid out.
Okay. So when you borrow against the money, does the company itself reduce the dividends, or do they keep the dividends at the same structure what you started with?
I believe they stay at the same because the money that you're borrowing is a separate deal. The agreement when you borrow the money is you're gonna pay 5% for that money, and so they're using the money to generate money. Right.
Okay, and also is the policy holder, which is the insurance company itself, they have a track record of being around at least 100 years plus of
Yes.
dividends all the
Yes.
time?
Yes.
Okay. And do they also accept infinite banking's concept with this insurance company? I'm sure they do, right?
The ones that we deal with, yes, they are familiar with the cash value structure that we utilize. They
Okay,
love us.
cool.
Love us.
Do they have some single pay premium type life insurance in this same category?
You mean like annual pay, one pay?
No, just one pay.
Yeah, that's usually the way we structure it, is an annual payment.
No, not annual. It's just a one pay, large lump sum. Like sometime a long time ago.
That's when they're paying out a death benefit. Then yeah, usually you can structure your payment, your payout. Usually it would be a lump sum, unless they wanted it structured, or if the instructions were for it to be distributed over a 10-year period of time. You know, those are in the special instructions.
Well, what I wanted to know is, I know it's going to take a long time. Wanted to know a little bit more about the trust structure and how it works, but I know we're already pretty good time.
I can again, I can get you included, and I'll do an illustration for you. You can see some of the materials that we send out, and you know, again, the key is you're in the information collecting phase. That's a good place to be, especially at this moment in time. And my feeling is, when you've collected enough information and you feel you can make an educated decision, that's when you pull the trigger.
Yeah, because I was looking at that certain trust that you were talking about, and I realized this certain trust was actually written in, I think it was in 2000 or 2001, by a certain attorney, and he structured this, and it's actually been a copy of that same structure, but it has been implemented to work to today's standards, because the laws have changed a little bit. Actually, this year, which is up on the ruling of the IRS code 643B, which is what changed on that. And basically that's what's also been changed in the structure since the copyrights of this type of structure. And there's a lot more. This is a very complex trust. It's one of a kind. And so it has to be written in a certain way. I would just like for, just talk more about that type of structure and the laws next time we talk about this trust.
Well, the key with the changes are this: is there is misconception, or they're out in the marketplace. There's a fair bit of misconception with how the trust can do what it does. And that stems from a misunderstanding of revenue versus passive revenue, right? In passive income. The passive income that's recognized as the extraordinary dividend, the income needs to be identified and go in as that in order for its tax deferred status to be maintained, right? You can't be just randomly pouring money in there, assuming that it's going to be tax free. So that's where, again, being very specific and creating a solid paper trail, specific agreements, lease agreements, that's an essential part of the trust structure, right?
Because this is the one in the concept out there, which is spreading right now on this infant banking.
Sure.
Is there's like a three trust structure out there, which actually goes past this non-grantor trust as it is. And what it explains is you set up a business trust, you set up a family trust, and then you set up a 508(1)(c)(a) trust for nonprofit spiritual program, which then you can do your infinite banking. As I understand, that one works, but then it does not because it flags the IRS under the 643B provision, which is with the IRS. And I know that's been changed. So I wanted to bring that to people here to be cautious on that three structure tier, because I think the one structure trust is actually better.
Yeah,
and
guaranteed.
I'd like to see how it really works. And
Guaranteed.
That's what I'm really more concerned about. Because I think one trust would be better than the three trust structure, which is what's going out there right now.
Correct.
Which I already know that the IRS is being flagged because you're setting up three individual trusts within the same time period to do the infinite banking concept, which puts red flags to you as it is. So that concept may or may not work, but it is right now it flags the IRS to pay attention to you. That's why I think this one trust is actually better
Guaranteed.
and I'd like to know the concept how this one works.
Guaranteed. And in all aspects of our life and investing and business, you always want to be gravitating towards simplicity, right? The more complicated something is, start walking away, right? You've got to be able to just see the pieces the way they fit and understand, okay, in order for this to function, this needs to take place, right? And if it's really complicated, step away. That's my philosophy. I've had a lot of deals come my way, and it's just like, you got to do this, to do this, to do this, to do this. And it's like, I don't know, just seems like a lot of work. But because with this trust, the objective is to set it and forget it. Once it's in place, because it's already stood the test of time, now the only thing that we want to be working on is focusing on the generational wealth that's going to be created as this trust goes from generation to generation to generation, because its structure and mechanisms are all solid. So I'm going to bring the call to a close tonight. Once again, as always, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your contribution. It's great participation tonight, everybody. And thank you for your trust. As always, stay anchored in your faith and in your pursuits. Be somebody who contributes to society, contributes to your neighborhood, to your fellow man. You know, our objective is to create paradigm shifts within ourselves. So we used to think this way, and now we think this way. As our thinking shifts, our actions change as well. And when we look to our communities and our world saying, how can I bring value to this scenario? How can I bring value to my fellow man, to my community? the world becomes a better place. Thank you all for your time. God bless. Take care.
Thanks, Stephen.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.